Yolanda Yo-Yo Whitaker. Yo-Yo. She was really one of the first women to hold a deep spot in Tupac's life. The two met back in the late 80s, catching each other in recording studios and crossing paths in different cities. What started out as a friendship soon blossomed into romance around 1989. Yo-Yo, who was making her mark in hip-hop herself, always said that their love was real, pure, and deep.
Back then, people thought that you and Pac were dating.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, y'all did date?
Yeah, we did date.
That's real?
We were great friends on the road. We met each other early, 89, when Pac first came out here. And we dated, and Pac, we became great friends, which later ended up in a relationship.
In her words, they were in love, and she carried that love with her all the way until his death. She even admitted that out of all the women Tupac dated, she believed she was probably his favorite. But over time, as the years rolled on and life on the road got busier, their romance shifted into something even more lasting. They became like brother and sister, holding a bond rooted in love and respect. Yo-Yo made it clear that nothing bad ended their relationship. They were just two people who loved each other and were constantly moving in different directions.
Which turned into a friendship because the relationship just couldn't last. I was just introducing myself to the industry.
What drew her most to Pac was how fearless he was in speaking the truth, whether it was about his parents, his community, or the struggles nobody wanted to talk about. That courage only made her love him more. Their connection stretched across 6 years, all the way until 1996, making her one of his earliest and most enduring relationships. Lisa Left Eye Lopes. Lisa Left Eye. Tupac and Lisa met at a concert in 1991, and their chemistry was instant, intense, fiery, almost too much at times. Both Geminis, their connection was like putting two mirrors in front of each other. It was exciting, unpredictable, and sometimes overwhelming. Lisa used to say being around Pac felt a little weird because their personalities were so similar, it was almost like they clashed and meshed at the same time.
It was a little weird being in the presence of Tupac, and we're very similar. Similar to the point where we almost clashed. And it was almost like four people being in a room.
She believed they were soulmates, pointing out uncanny similarities that went as far as them having the same spices sitting in their kitchen cabinets.
Everything that was in my cabinets was in his cabinet, down to the seasonings in the kitchen, the types of food that we ate, the pot set, the chairs that we sat in.
Despite that closeness, Pac drew a line when it came to intimacy. He told her, "Never let me sleep with you no matter what happens," and she respected that boundary. Still, that didn't erase the emotions. They had feelings that sometimes boiled over into jealousy. Pac was also there for her in some of her lowest moments, including the infamous night she burned down Andre Rison's house. He showed up, supported her, and even rescued her from the chaos. After Pac got out of prison, the two reconnected, but life got hectic, careers took off, and the relationship eventually faded. Yet their bond never broke. They stayed good friends up until his death. Rosie Perez. Rosie Perez. She entered Pac's life in a totally different way. She wasn't a lover, but she was someone he respected deeply. They first met in the early 90s. Rosie was choreographing for Heavy D, and Pac at the time was still just a dancer with Digital Underground. That connection grew into a genuine friendship. Rosie was often by his side at industry events, most famously when she brought him as her date to the 1993 Soul Train Music Awards after her original date canceled. The two caused a stir just by walking in together, sparking rumors that they were romantically involved. Rosie always kept it real though, saying they were never lovers, just close friends.
What happened was is that I was supposed to go to the Soul Train Music Awards with this other guy in the music industry. Don't ask, we'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
And he stood me up. And Tupac, we were friends, and he called me up and he was like, "What's up?" And I was like, and he said, "Yo, forget that."
What tied them together was shared pain. They both came from tough childhoods and understood the weight of trying to make it in Hollywood while carrying scars from the past. Pac leaned on her at times, and Rosie, knowing he needed someone stable in his life, even played matchmaker, introducing him to Madonna.
I go to the bathroom, Madonna was there, and she was like, "Are you him?" I was like, "No!" She goes, "Oh, could you hook me up?" I went, "Yeah."
Their friendship was steady, honest, and free of the complications romance can bring, which made it special. Madonna. The introduction from Rosie turned into one of Pac's most surprising relationships. The two quietly dated for about a year, starting in 1993, keeping the romance largely under wraps. Madonna later admitted Pac had this fire about him, saying he got her all riled up about life.
I was dating Tupac Shakur at the time, and the thing is, he got me all riled up about life in general. So when I went on this show, I was feeling very gangster.
But the relationship came to a crashing halt in early 1995 while Pac was serving time in prison. He sent Madonna a now famous letter where he explained why he had to end things. In the letter, Pac told her that as a young black man trying to rise in a racially divided industry, dating a white woman could hurt his image and even his career.
The letter was written in 1995. He wrote it from when he was in prison. He wrote it to her, basically explaining everything. And the main thing, like you said, is race. He says that for her, it would be good if she was with a black man. It would help her. However, for him to be seen with a white woman, it would hurt his credit, everything that he's done, his image, all this stuff. So that was kind of the reason why he wasn't with her.
He regretted how it played out, but he felt it was something he couldn't risk. On top of that, he admitted he was hurt when Madonna did a TV interview talking about an organization that rehabilitates rappers, a comment that cut deep because she had never dated other rappers before him. Despite the breakup, Pac wanted them to stay friends. Salli Richardson. Salli Richardson. She and Pac met in Hollywood in 1993 and were instantly drawn to each other. Their fling was described as short but fiery, a brief but intense romance.
We had his Malibu crib, you know. It felt like a movie, bro. Like, Salli Richardson was there, you know, in his Malibu house, right?
Salli admired Pac's complexity, his depth, and his charisma, but with both of them rising in their careers and the chaos of fame's constantly circling, the relationship couldn't last. Reports even listed as only lasting from February 1994 to March 1994, barely a month. Still, what made their short time together meaningful was the mutual respect they shared. They both recognized the connection but also saw the obstacle standing in the way. Instead of letting it end badly, they parted ways on good terms. Desiree Smith. Desiree Smith. Des Smith's story with Tupac is one of the most layered and complicated of them all. Their connection began way back in the mid-'80s, but it really deepened during the turbulent period of the early '90s. Des was constantly around during his prison stints. Those famous jailhouse photos of her with Pac made the rounds among fans, and they were more than just snapshots.
My name is Desiree Smith, and I was in an on and off relationship for about 3 years with Tupac.
They were proof of how close she was to him. Pac wrote her letter after letter, pouring out his feelings, his frustrations, and his dreams. Together, they even talked about starting a family, going as far as picking out baby names: Giovanni Supreme Shakur for a boy, Giovanna Sparkle Shakur for a girl.
One day we were just talking, and we were talking about like baby names and stuff like that. And he was saying if he had a son, he wanted to name him Giovanni Supreme Shakur. If he had a daughter, Giovanna.
According to Des, they met at Club Muse in New York after a Biggie performance. She said Pac just seemed to appear out of nowhere, materializing in front of her, and she couldn't take her eyes off him. His voice, his stare, everything about him felt hypnotic. They lost touch briefly when she lost her pager, but Biggie of all people ended up reconnecting them. From there, it was on.
And I told him, I said, I lost my beeper, I lost contact with him, and he was like, well, he's in New York, and I know he would want to see you.
Their relationship showed how Pac's style of romance was unconventional. Instead of grand gestures, he showed love through trust, vulnerability, and letting her into parts of his world most people never got to see. They spent their days doing normal things, movies, cooking, hanging with his people, but even those moments were charged with intimacy. She never forgot the time Pac shielded her during a football game, draping his jewelry over her and warning his boys to leave my baby alone. Des was also there during one of the darkest chapters of his life, the 1993 SA case. He confided in her about how deeply it hurt him, and she knew in her heart that the accusations didn't match who he was. She believed the case was less about him and more about tearing down a young black man on the rise. They even made a private tape together, one that was seized by police but never leaked. But their bond took a sharp turn after a heated fight. Pac had just been arrested in Atlanta and was already on edge when he spotted Des getting off a friend's bike outside a club. To him, it looked bad, and the argument that followed shook the relationship.
Because you said you and Tupac wasn't seeing eye to eye at the time of the shooting. So you and Tupac, y'all had a fallout because he's seeing you on another dude's motorcycle.
Des was crushed. Things spiraled from here. After Pac was shot at Quad Studios, she rushed to the hospital, only to find he had already checked out. Then she found out he had married Kesha Morris while in prison. Des felt blindsided, betrayed, left behind. Still, Pac found his way back to her. Through their mutual friend, Stretch, they reconnected. From prison, Pac wrote her again, telling her he didn't trust Stretch anymore and confessing he still wanted her in his life. He even told Kesha about Des, which annoyed Des more than anything. She didn't want to be a side note. She confirmed how possessive Tupac was with his women, so she remained part of his orbit. She was so close to him that she even influenced his infamous feud with Biggie. According to her, she was the one who suggested Pac target Faith Evans, believing Faith was the weakest link compared to Lil Kim.
Kim seems more loyal to him. I don't know if she would let you do that. So, I was like, probably Faith would be the weaker link out of the two.
When Pac later called in to say it had happened, Des broke down physically, so sick she ended up in the emergency room. Her body literally rejecting the weight of what had gone down. She was there for a signing with Death Row, saw him at his most vulnerable, and carried his loss for decades. After his death, she admitted she couldn't even listen to his music for years, and her biggest regret was that bike incident argument and the family they never got to have. Kesha Morris. Kesha Morris, the woman who legally became Mrs. Shakur. Kesha met Pac in the summer of 1994 at a club in New York, and their bond was immediate. By April 29, 1995, they were married. Pac was locked up in Clinton Correctional Facility at the time, and marriage for him was partly about security. He later admitted that he didn't want people brushing off Kesha as just another girlfriend. He wanted her to be respected as his wife, to have status while he was away, and he didn't want to feel alone facing a potential 4-year bid.
I married her for the wrong reasons.
What were the reasons?
I cared about her, but I married her because I was in jail, I was alone, and I didn't want to be alone.
Kesha was loyal. She visited him constantly, helped keep his affairs in order, and became the steady presence he needed while he was locked down. But when he got out on bail in October 1995, things shifted fast. By March 1996, their marriage was annulled. Kesha later explained that once he was free, she felt like she didn't matter as much anymore, that she wasn't needed the way she was when he was behind bars. She had started speaking up more, putting her foot down, and Pac began pulling away.
There's an excerpt where Tupac calls you, and then you hook up with Tupac, and then he calls another woman on your line. Is that true?
Yes, it's true.
Still, they stayed close. In fact, the night before his death, Pac called Kesha, insisting she come to see him in his New York hotel. They spent hours talking, but nothing physical happened. She said Pac always believed he wouldn't live long, and she had to be the one arranging prison visits for other women. Pac even wrote in a letter that she would always be Mrs. Shakur no matter what. Sharise Neil. Sharise Neil. In 1995, Pac had a fling with Sharise Neil, the ex-wife of Motley Crue frontman Vince Neil. On the surface, it was a wild pairing, hip-hop rebel meets rock and roll royalty, but they actually clicked. Both came from the chaos of the music world, and they respected each other's grind. Their romance was short-lived, mostly cut down by busy careers and constant public pressure, but it proved just how far Pac's appeal stretched. Jara Everett. Jara Everett, another woman who saw a side of Pac most people didn't. They met through mutual connections in the entertainment industry, and though their time together was short, it stuck with her. Jara later called him her favorite boyfriend, saying that behind closed doors, he was nothing like the fiery public figure the world knew. To her, Pac was down to earth, sweet, and real. Their bond ended abruptly with his death, leaving her with memories she later put into her book, Jump Off: The Real Truth. Her story painted Pac as someone who craved normalcy and intimacy despite the chaos around him. Kidada Jones. Kidada Jones. Their love story is one of the most remembered because it was the last. When they first crossed paths in 1995, things were awkward. Pac had previously criticized her father, Quincy Jones, for his dating choices, so Kidada brushed him off at first. But when they met again, Pac apologized and soon, sparks flew.
I was at a club one night in New York, and he thought I was Rashida. Tupac did, and he came up to me, and he was apologizing about the article that he wrote about my parents. And inside I'm just like, oh my God, he is so cute.
By their third meeting, they were already inseparable. Pac even told his mother, Afeni, that he loves Kidada and she would be his wife and the mother of his kids. After his release and the annulment with Kesha, Pac and Kidada moved in together in Calabasas. They were engaged, with Kidada wearing a 4-carat ring that even Des later admitted seeing. For 4 months, they lived as they were building a future, one that tragically never got the chance to fully form. On the night of the Las Vegas shooting, Kidada was with him in their hotel room, already uneasy with a powerful gut feeling that something bad was coming. She was at the hospital when the news hit, staying by his side for 6 agonizing days until he passed. Later, she would call him the love of my life, saying his death was the worst thing that ever happened to her.
For 8 or 9 months, I tell you, I could not get a word out. I couldn't leave my house. And then I harbored a lot of anger towards my dad because he wasn't there.
Not everyone saw it that way, though. Desiree Smith, still connected to Pac in her own way, wasn't fond of Kidada. She remembered her stink face at the hospital and thought she carried herself with entitlement.
Her energy was crazy to me. This man is in the hospital. They're taking out his lung. Like, he's had all these gunshots and wounds to his body. And you're pissed because a female shows up at the hospital?
Des even speculated Pac might have been with Kidada partly for career reasons, given her father's powerful industry ties. But speculation aside, Kidada represented the last love Tupac had, and her place in this story is undeniable. Arnelle Simpson. Arnelle Simpson. She's the daughter of O.J. Simpson, and around 1995, when Pac was heavy in the studio, she was spotted hanging around a lot. Danny Boy, who was on death row at the time, confirmed that Tupac and Arnelle probably had a sensual relationship, and this was right around the time he was shooting the California Love video. The crazy part is all of this was happening while her dad, O.J., was in the middle of the biggest trial in America, facing charges for the murder of his wife.
Her daddy, O.J. Simpson, the biggest case in L.A., and she hanging in the studio with us all the time.
That was one of Tupac chicks, huh? Or
probably was, because that's who I seen her around. So she was probably just, I don't know. You know, wasn't too many times that the girl hanging around and she fuck somebody.
Danny Boy even claimed he lived close to the crime scene, saw parts of the aftermath, and later got pushed out of the neighborhood after OJ walked free. So Arnelle being in those Can-Am studio sessions gave everyone a surreal, almost tabloid feel. Whitney Houston. This is another surprising name tied to Pac. According to her ex-husband Bobby Brown, Whitney and Pac had an affair sometime around 1994, during the early stages of her marriage. Bobby admitted in his book that finding out about it really messed him up. He couldn't believe Whitney would risk what they had.
One of her affairs that I am willing to mention is the one she had with Tupac. This occurred in the first few years of our marriage, during a time when I thought we were in a good place.
But when Pac died in '96, Bobby said Whitney mourned, like she had lost someone deeply personal. She cried for days, and he could tell it wasn't just about losing a fellow artist. She was mourning a lover.
Whitney bawled her eyes out, crying for days over his death. Her tears were painful for me because I knew what that meant. My wife was mourning the passing of a lover.
Their connection stayed private while he was alive, which only adds more mystery to it, but it seems to have been real, meaningful, and born out of mutual admiration during a chaotic time in both their lives. Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige. She was rumored to have hooked up with Tupac between 1995 and 1996. Suge Knight himself confirmed that Mary and Pac were really good friends, but he also hinted there was more. He told a story about Mary being in a suite at the Pistol Hotel and Pac coming over. The two ended up in a room together, doors shut. Suge said, whatever they did, not spelling it out but making it clear there was definitely something private happening.
Her and Pac was good friends, and whatever they did, so I'm not going to actually say what they did.
He even recalled how Casey from Jodeci came looking for Mary, but couldn't get past the door because she and Pac were inside. Suge didn't really see it as messy though. He said it was a beautiful thing and praised Mary as one of the greatest people he'd met. It's interesting because around this time, Mary was also tied into Puffy's circle, which layered even more tension onto the whole East Coast-West Coast rivalry. Lil Kim. Lil Kim, Pac's name comes up around her too, but not because they were ever romantically involved. Desiree Smith, Pac's longtime confidant, revealed that Pac had plotted to hurt Biggie emotionally by messing with the women in his life. He told Des he wanted to F Biggie's chicks to crush him. He considered both Faith Evans and Kim, but Desiree advised him that Faith would be the easier choice. In her eyes, Kim was too loyal, too much of a ride or die for Big, while Faith, already humiliated by Big's cheating, was more vulnerable.
Kim seems more loyal to him. I don't know if she would let you do that. So, I was like, probably Faith would be the weaker link out of the two.
Pac wasn't even attracted to Kim like that. It was a purely strategic move in the middle of his war with Biggie. Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada Smith. She may be the most important platonic relationship Pac ever had. They met back in the 80s at the Baltimore School for the Arts and instantly clicked. Jada admitted she didn't even think he was good-looking at first, but Pac had this pull, this magnetism.
From looking at him, wasn't necessarily like the type of cat that I would even deal with. As soon as he approached me, he was like a magnet. It was like once you paid attention to him, he kind of sucked you in. And we hit it off from that moment on.
He made her feel seen, not as some girl to hook up with, but for her mind, her talent, her individuality. She always described it as a unique, unconditional love. Pac felt the same way. In fact, in a letter to Angela Artist, he spelled it out. "I do love Jada, but only as a friend. No, I never had physical relations with her, just friendship in its purest form." They did share a kiss once, but both laughed it off. It felt awkward, and they realized their bond wasn't supposed to be physical. Their friendship had ups and downs, though. Jada admitted they argued a lot, even after a hardcore fallout before his death.
"Okay, Pac, just kiss me." And he kisses me, and it's the most disgusting kiss between us both. And then there was one more time. He kissed me, and it was just like, dude, doesn't work.
She didn't like the destructive road he was going down, while Pac thought she had changed after Hollywood success. At one point, she was leaving her past life tied to drug dealers, while he was diving deeper into that world. Despite the tension, she insists Pac knew she loved him, even when they weren't speaking. Will Smith later admitted he was extremely jealous of Pac, saying the love Jada had for him made it impossible for him to even be friends with Pac. And then there's Pac's poetry. He wrote several pieces inspired by Jada, calling her his heart in human form, someone he could never fully explain his love for. Even Desiree Smith backed it up, saying Pac held Jada in the highest regard and that it was never sensual. She believed Jada loved him too, just not in that way, and if she had wanted him, Pac wouldn't have said no. Their friendship stretched over years, always rumored as romantic.